let's see. All right, we are live. So, so guys, I don't know if you can hear me in the control room. I'm getting a nod. Great. So the question that we have here is, some of the parents here have partners who weren't able to make it. They love to be as part of this this live stream. Can we get that live stream out to them, or a recording of it out to them so they can share it? Okay, I'm getting a nod. All right. So I'm guessing that it may be a recorded live stream that they will be able to see? It's currently streaming. Okay, so can you get me the information for how they can stream it? Okay, okay. So you'll come in with that information and we'll share it with them? Okay, awesome.
It's in your email.
I had a couple other things going yesterday.
So right now, this is if you go to the YouTube channel for Relativity School, if anyone wants to send a text to family that's not here.
Perfect, right.
Then it's currently right now live. Us talking about this right now is being fed.
Okay, awesome, terrific. All right, so I will go ahead and dive in. So if you need to text that information, you guys got the information you need to share it? We're all good? Awesome. Okay, so what I wanted to give you all a chance to do is to get a sense of what we're about and what it is that we're trying to do here. Because the educational experience that we've spent 4 years and a tremendous amount of resources and the collaboration of the most amazing team of people I could possibly imagine working with is something completely different probably than the educational experience that you had, probably very, very different from the educational experience that your sons and daughters' friends are having. So what I wanted to make sure you got a chance to do was to come into this process as a fellow collaborator in it. So you would know what it was about, you would know what questions might come your way, what challenges might come their way, and you'd be prepared to be supportive of them in this endeavor. So that's what we're about. I'm going to talk about that in a general sense. Then Will Lynn's going to come in and talk about Gen Ed, the specifics of our general education program, because even though we are very much industry standard and technology forward focused, we are here to train the whole individual. And that's part of what Will does here for us, and I want to make sure you feel reassured in our seriousness of approach for all of the educational values that we invest in here. So in terms of this, what we're looking at is, it's a new world, right? You know, the educational preparation that we got for the world that I grew up in, I'm 50, I don't know if it was about the same for you, but the notion was if you got a good general education, got good grades, that there would be a job for you, and that this was how life would work. It's not worked out that way for me. It's worked out to be something quite different, in some ways much more interesting, much more active and dynamic and challenging, and most schools are pretty entrenched bureaucracies. That's what they do. What we've wanted to do was to create a school in a different model that was more dynamic, more nimble, and more in step with the opportunities and the challenges that your sons and daughters are going to be looking at in their working world. This TED Talk, I think, explains that better than most anything else I've seen. So we're going to turn off the overhead lights, we'll play it, and then we'll talk about it.
Every country on earth at the moment is reforming public education. There are two reasons for it. The first of them is economic. People are trying to work out, how do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century? How do we do that? Given that we can't anticipate what the economy will look like at the end of next week, as the recent turmoil is demonstrating. How do we do that? The second, though, is cultural. Every country on earth is trying to figure out, how do we educate our children so they have a sense of cultural identity and so that we can pass on the cultural genes of our communities, while being part of the process of globalization. How do you square that circle? The problem is they're trying to meet the future by doing what they did in the past. And on the way, they're alienating millions of kids who don't see any purpose in going to school. When we went to school, we were kept there with a story, which was if you worked hard and did well and got a college degree, you would have a job. Our kids don't believe that. And they're right not to, by the way. You're better having a degree than not, but it's not a guarantee anymore. And particularly not if the route to it marginalizes most of the things that you think are important about yourself. Some people say we have to raise standards as if this is a breakthrough. You know, like, really, yes, we should. Why would you lower them? You know, I mean, I haven't come across an argument that persuades me of lowering them. But raising them, of course we should raise them. The problem is that the current system of education was designed and conceived and structured for a different age. It was conceived in the intellectual culture of the Enlightenment and in the economic circumstances of the Industrial Revolution. Before the middle of the 19th century, there were no systems of public education. Not really. I mean, you could get educated by Jesuits, you know, if you had the money. But public education, paid for from taxation, compulsory to everybody and free at the point of delivery, that was a revolutionary idea. And many people objected to it. They said it's not possible for many street kids, working class children, to benefit from public education. They're incapable of learning to read and write, and why are we spending time on this? So there's also built into it a whole series of assumptions about social structure and capacity. It was driven by an economic imperative of the time, but running right through it was an intellectual model of the mind, which was essentially the Enlightenment view of intelligence. That real intelligence consists in the capacity for a certain type of deductive reasoning and a knowledge of the classics originally, what we come to think of as academic ability. And this is deep in the gene pool of public education, that there are really two types of people, academic and non-academic, smart people and non-smart people. And the consequence of that is that many brilliant people think they're not, because they've been judged against this particular view of the mind. So we have twin pillars, economic and intellectual. And my view is that this model has caused chaos in many people's lives. It's been great for some. There have been people who have benefited wonderfully from it. But most people have not. Instead, they suffer this. This is the modern epidemic, and it's as misplaced and it's as fictitious. This is the plague of ADHD. Now, this is a map of the incidence of ADHD in America, or prescriptions for ADHD. Don't mistake me here. I don't mean to say there is no such thing as attention deficit disorder. I'm not qualified to say if there is such a thing. I know that a great majority of psychologists and paediatricians think there is such a thing. But it's still a matter of debate. What I do know for a fact is it's not an epidemic. These kids are being medicated as routinely as we had our tonsils taken out. And on the same whimsical basis, and for the same reason, medical fashion. Our children are living in the most intensely stimulating period in the history of the earth. They're being besieged with information and calls for their attention from every platform, computers, from iPhones, from advertising holdings, from hundreds of television channels. And we're penalizing them now for getting distracted. From what? You know, boring stuff. At school, for the most part. It seems to me it's not a coincidence totally that the incidence of ADHD has risen in parallel with the growth of standardized testing. Now, these kids are being given Ritalin and Adderall and all manner of things, often quite dangerous drugs, to get them focused and calm them down. But according to this, attention deficit disorder increases as you travel east across the country. People start losing interest in Oklahoma. They can hardly think straight in Arkansas. And by the time they get to Washington, they've lost it completely. And there are separate reasons for that, I believe. It's a fictitious epidemic. If you think of it, the arts, and I don't say this exclusively the arts, I think it's also true of science and of maths, but I say about the arts particularly because they are the victims of this mentality currently, particularly. The arts especially address the idea of aesthetic experience. An aesthetic experience is one in which your senses are operating at their peak, when you're present in the current moment, when you're resonating with the excitement of this thing that you're experiencing, when you are fully alive. An anesthetic is when you shut your senses off and deaden yourself to what's happening. And a lot of these drugs are that. We're getting our children through education by anesthetizing them. And I think we should be doing the exact opposite. We shouldn't be putting them asleep. We should be waking them up to what they have inside of themselves. But the model we have is this. I believe we have a system of education that is modeled on the interests of industrialism and in the image of it. I'll give you a couple of examples. Schools are still pretty much organized on factory lines, ringing bells, separate facilities, specialized into separate subjects. We still educate children by batches. We put them through the system by age group. Why do we do that? Why is there this assumption that the most important thing kids have in common is how old they are? It's like the most important thing about them is their date of manufacture. You know what I mean? Well, I know kids who are much better than other kids at the same age in different disciplines, or at different times of the day, or better in smaller groups than in large groups, or sometimes they want to be on their own. If you're interested in the model of learning, you don't start from this production line mentality. It's essentially about conformity, and increasingly it's about that as you look at the growth of standardized testing and standardized curricula. And it's about standardization. I believe we've got to go in the exact opposite direction. That's what I mean about changing the paradigm. There was a great study done recently of divergent thinking. It was published a couple of years ago. Divergent thinking isn't the same thing as creativity. I define creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. Divergent thinking isn't a synonym, but it's an essential capacity for creativity. It's the ability to see lots of possible answers to a question, lots of possible ways of interpreting a question, to think what Edward de Bono would probably call laterally, to think not just in linear or convergent ways, to see multiple answers, not one. So, there are tests for this. One kind of cod example would be people might be asked to say, how many uses can you think of for a paperclip? One of those routine questions. Most people might come up with 10 or 15. People who are good at this might come up with 200. And they do that by saying, well, could the paperclip be 200 foot tall and be made out of foam rubber? Does it have to be a paperclip as we know it, Jim? Now, there are tests for this, and they gave them to 1,500 people. This is in a book called Breakpoint and Beyond. And on the protocol of the test, if you scored above a certain level, you'd be considered to be a genius at divergent thinking. Okay? So my question to you is, what percentage of the people tested, of the 1,500, scored at genius level for divergent thinking? Now, you need to know one more thing about them. These were kindergarten children. So what do you think? What percentage at genius level? 80. 80, okay. 98%. Now, the thing about this was it was a longitudinal study. So they retested the same children 5 years later, ages of 8 to 10. What do you think? 50? They retested them again 5 years later, ages 13 to 15. You can see a trend here, can't you? Now, this tells an interesting story, because you could have imagined it going the other way, couldn't you? You start off not being very good, but you get better as you get older. But this shows two things. One is we all have this capacity, and two, it mostly deteriorates. Now, a lot of things have happened to these kids as they've grown up. A lot. But one of the most important things that happened to them, I'm convinced, is that by now they've become educated. They've spent 10 years at school being told there's one answer, it's at the back. And don't look. And don't copy, because that's cheating. Outside schools, that's called collaboration, but inside schools. Now, this isn't because teachers want it this way. It's just because it happens that way. It's because it's in the gene pool of education. We have to think differently about human capacity. We have to get over this old conception of academic, non-academic, abstract, theoretical, vocational, and see it for what it is, a myth. Secondly, we have to recognize that most great learning happens in groups, that collaboration is the stuff of growth, atomize people and separate them and judge them separately, we form a kind of disjunction between them and their natural learning environment. And thirdly, it's crucially about the culture of our institutions, the habits of the institution and the habitats that they occupy.
Can we have the lights up again? So I think this dramatizes many things. And I could, and my colleagues can attest to this, I could spend the entire day just talking about this video, which I will try not to. I want to escape out of this. I'm going to go back into my presentation. I want to make sure my font sizes are proper. Okay, great. So, one thing which this really highlights for me is this notion of the advantage that you have in being pioneers. You know, in some ways, I think a lot of the success of this country was based upon diverse groups of people having the wherewithal, the insight, the creativity to see a different life for themselves, or once here, to reinvent themselves. That kind of creative perspective, that willingness to take life as it is and move beyond it, or as August Wilson says, to take whatever has been given to you and make of it a legacy. You know, this is their birthright, their talent, their skill, what they came into this world with and what they found in the support of your family and what they found working with people who were inspired by the same things that inspired them. And we want to empower that within them. We want to give them a place where what education is not different from what the world will be like, is not different from where they are at their point of genius and gift and freedom. That's what it's about. And it'll be an experience which isn't always comfortable for them. And they're going to ask questions. And I want to make sure that you have some sense of what kind of questions may come your way, and I want to make sure that I have a chance to answer whatever questions you have. If not now, then whenever you've got them. One thing which I will make clear to you, though, our ability to talk in detail about your sons and daughters' academic performance is something which is governed by something called FERPA, and it's a law which protects their privacy. If they sign a release for that, then we can speak at liberty. One thing which I can talk about ad nauseum is what we're about and what we're doing, okay? So, questions that may come your way. How do you support them in this journey? Why isn't this more like college? You know, they're going to be talking, well, Mom, Dad, I'm working. I'm working from early in the morning until late at night. I'm juggling this project and that project. And, well, where's the fraternity? Where's the sorority? Where are the evenings on the quad? You know?
If they wanted that, they wouldn't have come here.
Yes, thank you. I mean, this is a place apart. This is a place that is for students who have extraordinary gifts and have chosen an extraordinary path. And there will be no artificial impediments in their way, and they're going to be right in it from very early on, and it'll be stressful for them because the questions that they'll be asking themselves from day one is, what am I doing here? What do I most want to become? How will I provide for myself? How will I address my needs for security in an insecure world? So those questions, which I still haven't really looked at myself, that maybe you guys looked at upon graduation, they're going to be hit with early. So be aware of that. They're going to have those existential, dark nights of the soul. We'll be here to wrestle with them. We'll make sure they have support, but these questions will probably come your way as well. Why don't I have more electives? I love electives. Well, that's because in looking at the curriculum, we don't look at curriculum as a bunch of boxes to check. It's not like get 3 from this box and 1 of this box over here, because it isn't about accumulating knowledge. We're not here to make them repositories of knowledge. What we're here to do is to teach them how to be and do and to put into practice and manifest their dreams. And just to give you an idea, I can teach you in 30 seconds how to hit a major league fastball. I'll teach you right now. It's easy. So it's all about having weight exchange, basically transferring weight into energy and torque into velocity. So the weight starts back here in the back foot. You transfer, there's a weight exchange in the hips, and then you swing with the hips and it goes out to your hands, and that's the velocity. I can teach you how to do it. I've now given you the lesson that you would get in any college about the educational content that you were supposed to check and be tested upon. But can you hit a Major League Baseball? Heck no. When my kid was 10, he could out-hit me, right? What we have to do is something quite different. We have to make it a place where they can practice, where their fuel is fed, where the techniques are the best, where the challenges are the ones that they will face. That's how it'll be different. And to do that, we have a very carefully curated set of classes. It's much more about training an athlete than it is about just checking boxes. And you do things in a certain order. They'll have a lot of process-oriented classes their second year. In the third year, there'll be some more specializing of various skills. And in their senior year, it'll be very product-oriented, getting together their curriculum, their creative portfolio, meeting with employers. There'll be an arc to the whole thing. And that's why they won't have the electives that you're used to thinking of as colleges delivering, because it's a different journey. Why do classes change each year? The classes which the sophomores took last year are going to be a little bit different than the ones that I'll take when I get there, because the world keeps changing. And what we have determined is going to be the best course of action keeps changing. And we keep iterating, we keep innovating, because that's the only way we keep up. There's nothing precious about this curriculum. It's not like, well, that's just Bob's class and that's how he teaches it. No, it's the student's class. Bob may be teaching it this week. Bob's a gifted man, but it's there for the students. We work for them. So the curriculum will continue to evolve. Other questions that will come up. Why do I have to learn about business or production or storytelling when I came here to be a performer or a filmmaker? Because there's not jobs. There's careers. And careers are built of manifesting diverse talents, many different areas of ability, connecting with people who have skills that you do not, coming up with a vision of yourself in a way that's completely different than I had the perspective to do. And it's going to take all of these skills to create the story of yourself, tell that story to people, get them involved with it, figure out how to monetize that, and move forward in that. So yes, you're going to learn how to greenlight yourself. If you're a dancer, you're going to learn how to make content. You're not going to wait for some filmmaker to show up and have the camera ready for you. If you're a filmmaker, you're not going to wait for the producer to knock on your door. You're going to figure out how to finance yourself, how to monetize. All that's going to be part of what you learn. Why do I have to take Collab Lab? Isn't that just doing other kids' homework? These are real questions. And the notion here is that very, very few things in this world are things that you do and are graded upon just by yourself. There are very few jobs you do completely in a vacuum. Even when I was focused on writing books, I got all kinds of input on that process. You know what I mean? So it's about building that skill, having that be something that is a source of inspiration for them, a chance to practice disruptive thinking, not something which knocks them off their stride. And the filmmakers have got extraordinary actors to work with. The actors get extraordinary filmmakers to help create their content. The dancers are some of our most active content creators because they can make it happen like that, you know? So all of these things feed one another. It's a beautiful symmetry. One of the other students got to skip class for 2 weeks. Why can't I? One thing that we do which is different is we allow students to have excused absences for professional opportunity. We believe that we're here to connect talent to opportunity. We have a whole range of places where that can happen. And having an opportunity to take targeted opportunities that are really going to be great for you, move you forward, are things that we want to allow time for and make sure that there's academic support for those students to step off for a couple classes and then step back on. Now, what you may hear is, I got this tremendous opportunity and they're not going to give it to me as an excused absence. That's not fair. Well, part of what we do is say, you know what? I know it sounds like an amazing opportunity to be in a USC student film, but you don't have a character name. You're just somebody in the back of that picture. We've got films that you can be in the back of just right here with really, really talented filmmakers. You know, we're going to help educate you about what truly is an opportunity. And so if we're giving you that opportunity, it's because we've seen it as such. If we're saying, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to excuse that, it's because we don't think it's the best investment of your time and energy. And that's why sometimes our policies look a bit more fluid than other places. Not so hard and fast. But what we're always open for is to explain and discuss when it's not clear, okay? This school is so different, so I won't have the challenges I had in high school, right? So this is something that I really want to invite you into. What happens to me every year is that we have students that have brilliance in areas, and they have other areas where they have documented challenges, documented differences. I score really high for ADD. This is not a surprise for anybody who works with me, right? And there's things about my mind and how it works that are really cool. So I want to make sure that we have a safe space. If someone comes to us and says, I need help in this class, I had help in this class in the past, or this class has never worked for me, I'm just dumb this way, bring those to me. We're here to support them. I work for your sons and daughters. Give us all the information that we can to make sure that we can do that in the best way possible. That's something that there's always a few who resist coming to us with those needs. We don't get a chance to address them because we don't know about them. Please see me. Please make sure we've got that information to help. I've been long-winded as usual, but are there other questions that you have? And I'm happy also to make time with you one-on-one to answer your questions. But has anything kind of jumped out at you right now that you just need to know? Okay. All right. I thank you. I'm going to invite Will Lynn to come up. He's going to talk in some more detail about our general education program. And thank you so much for spending time with us. All right.
Thank you.
And then I'll help you transition from you into the next one. Okay.
And Shazam. All right. Oops, that's your schedule. Okay, and there are some quotes. Okay. So, let's see, slideshow. Hi, everybody. Hi. Will Lynn, Chair of General Education here. I think I got to introduce myself earlier today. So nice to hear just a little bit about your students earlier today. I will also get to talk with you a little bit later when we talk about what it'll be like for you to send your students away and for them to come back after this tour. So I'll talk with you some more again later. Gonna dive right in and just talk about a few things relatively quickly to keep us on schedule. But first, just a quick thing to make sure you're all aware of. This is on the website. You can find this, but just so you know, these are the key days. So, you know, you already have done the assessments, the orientation. Classes will begin August 28th. That's the day. And then, of course, we have Labor Day off. This is the last time you can add or drop a class. Midterm week, family weekend, which some of you were asking about before, October 27th through October 29th. Last day to withdraw. And note that Veterans Day is observed the day before Thanksgiving break so that we can extend Thanksgiving just one extra day so they can be with you. Thanksgiving break, the 23rd, 24th. The last day of instruction is the 8th, but that's kind of misleading. Really, the last day is the 15th of December. And then the break will be December 16th through January 5th. Again, this is all online. I just wanted to go through it really quickly with you. I also want to we'll just thank Mark for his inspirational introduction. I don't have as many inspiring things to say, but I always appreciate getting to come on after him because I really do appreciate and really value working for a dean who I think you guys can all see really values disruption, doing things right, doing things new, doing things the best way they can be done, regardless of convention. However, general education does offer the classical liberal arts education. So there are some conventions that we do value and do want to keep. Education is something that's been cultivated for thousands and thousands of years, since at least Plato's Academy. There are some things that we really do want to make sure that we do. And so your students will get a classical liberal arts education. This is an opportunity. There are 10 courses. I believe you guys have probably all had a chance to look at them. 10 general education courses plus some entrepreneurship courses as well. And as mentioned, we have really specifically walked this line that balances making sure that we're doing a traditional general education offering, a traditional liberal arts offering, while at the same time doing our best to... need something? Okay. While at the same time doing our best to also tailor it to our storytellers, to our artists, to the unique students that we have here. One thing that I think is very special, at another school, you'll have history majors, anthropology majors, and as much as I love them, I think it's very special that here we have only storytellers. Dancers, actors, filmmakers, musical theater majors, everybody's a storyteller. That's very unique for us, to have a community of just storytellers. It's like Hogwarts having just magicians. You know, here we are with just storytellers. And so that enables us to kind of tailor the general education program in a way that can really benefit them as storytellers in a way that's not specific to their craft. So story provides a little bit of an intellectual through line, interdisciplinary through line through all the general education courses. I'll come back to that in a little bit. But first I just want to mention that generally, general education, these are the core opportunities here. Classical liberal arts education, it's also an opportunity, as you may remember, college as an opportunity to explore. Figure out what you didn't know that you liked and wanted to know more about. So there will be some classes that your students may think that they're not interested in beforehand. Oh, I don't want to take physics. But our physics course is very, 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 very cool, and I suspect that many of you who will hear this will later hear, oh, you know, that physics course was way more interesting than I thought it was. So intellectual exploration. Another key thing is in addition to just teaching whatever we can get done in these 4 years, we also want to deliver styles, skills, abilities, approaches to continuing to learn throughout your lifetime, or for your students' lifetime. So methods are as important as lessons. And then lastly, if you can see my Achilles heel, we really spelling. We really do want to make sure that your students don't sink themselves because of some inferior function. You may be the best dancer in the world, but if you write a terrible cover letter to that person you want to hire you, you've shot yourself in the foot. There are lots of Achilles heels that you need as an artist. You may need to be able to recognize yourself as a business. You need to be able to represent yourself with quality communication. All these various things are things that are given emphasis in general education, things that should support and help your students become professionals. And I also want to note that throughout education, and I really appreciate that video we just watched, that interdisciplinary studies is growing. It's increasingly important. And this is happening in an age of globalization, in an age in which we're inundated in information. And interdisciplinary studies, what this is all about are transdisciplinary studies, and I'll give you the distinction. Interdisciplinary studies means that I study a little history, study a little mythology, and I study some biology, and I try to study all of these things separately. That's an interdisciplinary focus. A transdisciplinary focus is I'm trying to make sense of how the biology relates to the physics, relates to my dancing, relates to the story that the person's writing. Transdisciplinary is to take the boundaries down and try and think free of the boundaries, as opposed to within each of the silos. And the reality is we're finding more and more young people just simply do think this way. And so trying to force them into the silos of specific classes has actually been an uphill battle. And we're finding that by doing service to the interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary focus that's been emerging across education, we've had a lot more success with interest and retention of information. Okay, so I don't want to extend this too far, but I will say that there are a few core values at the school that we really focus on within general education. Collaboration has been mentioned to you. Artist entrepreneurship has been mentioned to you. Story and narrative arts has been mentioned. And by what we mean by whole artist, we really do believe that an actor that is a good human is going to be a better actor. That a more complete world citizen is going to be a better artist. So we want to, and by the way, and somebody who's healthy is going to have a longer career. You know, so we really do value the wholeness of your student, their total package, their whole being, which we think, again, without some emphasis on this, we might let them leave here with too many Achilles heels. Oh, I do want to mention, too, freshman seminar. This is a new thing, and it'll be really relevant. I'll talk about it maybe a little bit more when I talk with you later today. Freshman seminar is a new course for freshmen, for incoming freshmen, that is built around these 4 core values, these 4 core relativity school values. Each of these values will be a unit. They'll write an essay on each one of these values. But the real reason I'm telling you about this, that I think is really valuable to you, for you to know as you leave your students with us, is that this course will be taught by an advisor, and this advisor will be with them for all 4 years. And the people in this course, in this one class in their freshman year, will be an advisee group that will continue to get together over the course of 4 years. So the idea is that this will be your first smallest bubble when you come in. You know, we expect students to make lots of friends, but we also understand that in your first few weeks in a new environment, having a nice little small world can be extremely valuable. So we've tried to create a small world for your students as they enter in. I don't want to use the F word and call it family, but it really should be something like that. Okay, I don't think we need to go into a whole lot of details about what it is to be an artist entrepreneur. We've talked about this a bit, and I do want to keep us on schedule, and about being a whole artist and the importance of collaboration. However, I will say just a little bit about story, because this is what I'm here to represent, I'm here to bring, and it's a lot of what I add. So my background, and I won't get too extended about it, I also work for the Joseph Campbell Foundation. My PhD is in mythology. I completed my dissertation with the head of Harvard's Mythology Degrees Committee Chair. So story, mythology is my background. I speak internationally in mythology. I run 60 mythological roundtables around the world for the Joseph Campbell Foundation. I write our newsletter and edit for the group. So my emphasis is on myth and story here. I teach a freshman story course, and there are a few things I just want to say about this. One is story provides a language for your students to speak with each other. So let's say you're an actor wanting to talk to a dancer, wanting to talk to a filmmaker. Character is character is character. Setting is setting is setting. Narrative is narrative is narrative. So there's a common language with story that crosses the disciplines that we have here. And this is really useful for collaboration and for community building. So I'm looking at the clock, and I'm fighting my own tendency to want to go deep into these things. And I do want to go deep into these things. Maybe I'll just pick one. How about mythopoeic imagery? This one brings up Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and the Inklings. So I don't know if some of you know that Tolkien's largely responsible for C.S. Lewis' conversion, not just to Christianity, but to symbolic thinking. So C.S. Lewis famously said, "A tree is just a tree. Bark, leaves, wood," right? And Tolkien, brokenhearted, what did most men do when another man makes them angry? He wrote a poem. He wrote a poem called Mythopoeia, and in this poem, according to the legend, this poem was hugely responsible for converting C.S. Lewis to a symbolic way of seeing, to a mythopoeic way of seeing. So let me ask, what is a ceiling? It means a lot to you, a lot more than just a literal ceiling, right? What is a floor? What is a window? What is these? When you start seeing just everyday things in their deep metaphorical, symbolic meaning, this is mythopoesis. This is not as simple as something like symbolism, where it's like, oh, this represents this thing, and throughout all of time you've seen this consistency that the vessel is symbolic of, I won't go there. But I will say, but what I think is so interesting about mythopoeic thought is it's actually a way of seeing. It's not something that you teach. It's not like a lexicon. It's not a dictionary of symbols. It's not a whole bunch of references. It's a sensibility. And so if there's anything I would say about what I'm trying to communicate with our emphasis on story, it's a sensibility. It's a fluency. It's an ability to see life and stories in the mythological languages that they present themselves in, which have impacted us for thousands and thousands of years. Okay, so I should move on from story. And lastly, just a couple notes on learning resources. We have the library here, but we also want to point out that our LA library is a shorter walk than the library was from my dorm room in college. It's just right down the street, and it is an excellent, excellent resource. You can find anything in there. There is a writer's room, a writing lab, and I encourage you to encourage your students to go to the writing lab. If any of them get poor grades based on essays, the first question you should ask, did you go to the writing lab? Because the writing lab will be very available to them this fall. And there's the computer lab, and there's also Grammarly for those who don't quite have time to come in. Grammarly is a tool that can help. It's just imagine like Word giving you feedback times 1,000 plus notes on the actual grammar rules and all this type of thing. So Grammarly is a tremendous tool for our young writers. And as you can imagine, I personally did not start writing cover letters for jobs until after college, basically, or really towards the tail end. And I'm glad. I don't even want to know what I would have written my freshman year. But we are asking your students to pursue professional opportunities immediately and off the bat. And so they will be sending cover letters. They will be communicating. Grammarly is there to help them elevate their level of writing as we also try and help them elevate their level of writing over 4 years. And again, that writing lab is available to them not just for essays, not just for stories, but also for cover letters, also for resumes. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Thank you very much, and I will look forward to seeing you all a little bit later today. And for now, I think, Mark, did you want to come back up here, or should I just introduce Dr. Martinez?
Introduce me.
Dr. Martinez! Please welcome Dr. Martinez, Dean of Students.
Thank you, Will.
Are you on this one?
I'll set it up. They told me what to do.
Okay.
So, good afternoon. I've had the pleasure to talk to many of you over the phone and some of you in person. We're going to go through a few items with financial aid and tuition and billing and student services, and then towards the end of this presentation, Jen Bowen, our Director of Career Development, will come in and talk to you about her department as well. So as we get set up, and I move my big shot out of the way so you can see the slides.
So if you press this arrow, you move forward. This will move you back.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you. So financial aid tuition. We all went through the financial aid process, or are still going through it, or finalizing it, the last steps. And we're going to sort of review what we did this year and sort of give you an idea why we did it and how we move forward from here. So first off, when your son or daughter was accepted into Relativity School, you received an award letter that included Relativity School scholarships and grants. These scholarships and grants are awarded for every 4 years that your son and daughters are here. So it's not a one-time, here you go, and next year it's like, disappears. No. Your son and daughter are eligible to receive those scholarships and grants from Relativity for each 4 years that they're here. Couple exceptions: if they were awarded a need-based grant, that ties into their FAFSA. And if they qualified for a need-based grant according to FAFSA, then they will get that every year that they're here. And the same thing with the SEOG grant. If they receive an SEOG grant, which is federal funds that the school matches, it's all based on FAFSA and the EFC as well. So understanding the financial aid process, most of you went through it. Was it difficult? Yeah. I remember the phone calls, and I remember the questions, and I welcome the phone calls and the questions. Sometimes it's complicated, sometimes it's not, but you know what? If you found that it was complicated, it's going to get easier every year. Did you ask for assistance? Yes, many of you did, especially if this is your first child in college. So, and if you've had 4 or 5 in college already, it was probably a simple process for you. So the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, you did it, congratulations. We're working on getting the funding as we speak. So once you complete the FAFSA, you get a student aid report, or SAR. And this sort of summarizes what the student would qualify for in federal financial aid. So one of the things you will see on this student aid report is an EFC, Estimated Family Contribution. This is an amount that the Department of Education feels that you can, as a family, afford to pay towards your son or daughter's education. Now, many of you saw the EFC and it's like, okay, yeah, that seems right, or it's like, I can't do that. Department of Ed uses an old formula that they haven't updated in decades, where they base family size, your adjusted gross income, your investments and everything, and they come out with this figure. Nobody clearly understands it. It's a complicated formula. Financial aid officers and directors of financial aid are communicating to the Department of Ed that this formula needs to be updated. So sometimes it works for families, sometimes it does not. But regardless, you're assigned an EFC, and there's different ways we can adjust that if needed. So for student federal financial aid, some students will qualify for Pell Grants, and this is money that they don't have to pay back. The Department of Education will help those with low EFC scores with a Pell Grant to help pay for their education. There's also federal direct loans, also known as student loans, or as we know it, Stafford loans. Now they just call it federal direct loan. And it comes in 2 parts, subsidized and unsubsidized. The maximum a student can receive in subsidized loan is $3,500, and then the rest will be awarded as a unsubsidized loan. Anybody here know the difference between the two? Anybody want to know the difference?
With the subsidized, they don't start accruing the interest until after they graduate.
Right.
So the interest doesn't keep adding up to increase the size of their loan until after they graduate.
Right. So the subsidized loan, while the student is in attendance, it does not accrue interest. Department of Ed pays the interest towards the lender, and they don't have to worry about that. The unsubsidized part of the loan does accrue interest while the student is in school. And then normally it is just capitalized back to the principal balance of the loan, or the student can elect to pay the interest that it is accruing on the unsubsidized portion of the loan. I think 99% of the students just have it capitalized to the principal balance of the loan. Financial aid paperwork. Okay, this is not the slide that I submitted, but let's just say instead of yellow, it says green. Remember the package of green forms? I called you up, you send them, and all that. That's what we use to verify the information you put on your FAFSA. We have to verify the information on your FAFSA before we can move forward in processing your Pell Grants and your student loans and your PLUS loans and all that. And that's the purpose of the green forms. There's 2 of them, a general financial aid form, a dependent or independent student verification form, and the statement of educational purpose. So we have to collect 3 forms every year. Now, this is a slide from last year. So the forms were yellow last year. This year you all worked with green forms. Next year, I can't tell you what the color is yet. The Department of Ed color codes its student aid report when they send them to the school. So our Director of Financial Aid at Husson College sort of uses that same color to match our financial aid forms, so that when she sees the form, she automatically, visually, she knows what year they belong to. Good system, okay? She's very organized and very precise, and so when you ask me, like, can I just email them to you? 2 reasons why. It's not going to be on the colored forms, and we need a wet signature on the forms. So financial aid information, independent verification, statement of educational purpose. So you all went to studentloans.gov, and the student had to do a loan entrance counseling. They had to sign a master promissory note. And then as a parent, you might have gone on to studentloans.gov to do the PLUS loan application and master promissory note. And the good thing is, if you did it this year, you don't have to do that part of it next year. We will just automatically renew the student federal aid. They don't have to go and do the counseling or the master promissory note again. For the PLUS loans, those of you that are taking PLUS loan, not College Avenue loans, but PLUS loans, you don't have to go through the application process or master promissory note again. We will send you a form towards the end of spring semester to have you renew your PLUS loan for the next academic year. We'll put the name and everything. You just tell us how much you need for the next year, and it's a simple process moving forward. So I said before, our Director of Financial Aid is at our Husson campus, at Husson College. And this January 2018, 19, 20, you get to do it 3 more times. All the green forms and all that. So, like I said, you get to do it all over again, with the exception of the master promissory note and the loan entrance counseling. But you got to do the green forms again. You know, don't know what colors, but you got to do those again. And you have to do the FAFSA again every year. You have to do the FAFSA. So last year, for this academic year, FAFSA opened in October. Okay. Before it used to open in January. Now they're opening the FAFSA early. October 1st is the anticipated opening for you to complete the FAFSA for 2018-2019 academic year. So just put that on your calendar. As a continuing student, you want to get this taken care of right away, so that in the spring semester, before they leave for the summer, their financial aid is set. And you don't have, as parents, you don't have to worry about it over the summer. You know that they're set by the time they finish the spring semester. Okay, so get the FAFSA done in October. It's going to require 2016 taxes. Okay, this year it required 2015. Department of Ed changed the law. Now they're using prior year tax information for your income verification on your FAFSA. So by October 2017, your 2016 taxes should be done. 95% of you will have them done, right? Any questions on federal financial aid or scholarships or anything I spoke about so far?
I have a question about the FAFSA.
Yes.
You said it opens October 1st, so is that the first day that you can actually get the 2017-2018 form?
Our forms usually come out the 18-19 form, right?
That's what I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Those forms will come out around that time as well. Okay? Our Husson College, they have to wait for any updates with the Department of Education of the information that we need to collect from you. And once they get final approval that that's all the information that they need, they will generate the form, send it to us. We will print it on the special colors. We will put them in those lovely envelopes that you all received this year and send them out to you. Well, now with continuing students, we have them come in and pick them up. Okay. A notice will go out to the students, come pick up your financial aid verification forms, fill them out, send them to your parents, whatever you need to do. Because as you all know, those of you that did the forms, a student can't do them by themselves, and the parent can't do them. Well, the parent could do them by themselves, but they also need the student signatures, right? Unless they're independent, then they just need to sign it. Any other questions? Tuition payment. Our tuition is usually billed 90 days before the start of, I'm sorry, yeah, 90 from the start of next semester. So here at our school, tuition is due 45 days prior to the start of each term. To make it simple for you and for me, tuition for the fall term, the one we're entering, was due July 14th. Okay, so you can anticipate that every year fall tuition is going to be due by mid-July. Okay, and then for spring, our spring semester starts the first Monday of January, unless that Monday's a holiday, New Year's Day, then it'd be the second Monday, but it's usually the first Monday of January. And that tuition payment is due by Thanksgiving, around November 25th. Okay, we will send out invoices probably early to mid-October, and then tuition payment will be due by around November 25th. And a late fee will be added to any tuition balance that is not paid by the posted due date or a date set by the finance department. So please plan accordingly.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Stacy
Hi,
Barnes.
Stacy. Nice to meet you.
So because you're receiving tuition from the VA, do you send them something?
Yes.
So they know by November? Or
So if
how
you're
that
receiving out, thank you, good question. If you're receiving payments for from veterans or PLUS loans or College Avenue loans or anything like that, if it's all set up and we know this money's coming in, then you don't have to worry about making that payment because we already have it set up. We know it's anticipated aid. And it should be reflected, with the exception of VA, it should be reflected in your amount due balance. You should see the PLUS loan, and spring tuition goes out and you go on to click to pay and it says amount due 0. That means you probably have PLUS loan, College Avenue loan. That's going to take care of the balance of that. And with the VA, we just make a note in the file and say, you know, we know this much is coming in. We've had the conversation, so yeah. If we know, then we don't call you. So, payment methods. You can pay by cash, in person. Rather you didn't. We don't like to carry around lots of cash in the office. But if you want to, sure, we will take it. You can write a check. You can do the old-fashioned way and write a check and mail it to us, or give it to your son and daughter, and they can bring it to us. Or you can bring it in yourself, and because you want to come visit me in my office. Sometimes I have candy in the back of my office, so you can come in just for the peanut M&Ms. Or if you can do money order. You can do a bank wire transfer where I can send you information. You can go to your bank and say, wire the school the money, and you can do it that way as well. And you can use a credit or debit card, which will add a 3% administrative fee to that. Now, if you want to pay by check, and many of you have, we now have a system that's called Populate, and you can pay online using check or credit card. With the check or the ACH, you need your routing number and your checking account number, and you put in the amount, and there's no fee when you are paying by check using your checking account. Okay? You can do the same thing with a credit or debit card. You can pay online, and these are the methods that we prefer: check online or credit card online, or a bank wire transfer are the three methods that we prefer. And with the credit card, it's going to add a 3% fee to the amount that you're paying. And it will show you, if you put $1,000 there, then it's going to show you're paying $1,030. It's going to show you what that 3% fee is before you submit it. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. I must be doing good. You'd have no questions. Fantastic. FERPA for parents of college students. What is FERPA? FERPA is the Family Education and Privacy Act of 1974, also known as the Buckley Amendment. Back in 1974, prior to 1974, information about students and their enrollment was just given freely to everybody. And then a senator by the name of Buckley said, that's not right, we gotta stop this. And so now we have FERPA. And we protect the student information and academic records from a lot of people, even you. Because it's their record, they're the student. You don't have free access to their information, their finances, their grades, their behavior, their attendance. Now you're sitting there and says, that's not right, I pay the bill, right? Okay, and you're absolutely right. So now they've amended the law a little bit, and there's two ways you can get access to your son and daughter's records. One, which they'll learn about tomorrow, we have a FERPA release form that the student can fill out and say, I'm giving my mom and my dad, or not my dad, but just my mom, access to discipline, academic records, finances, this and that. And they check out the boxes, and we set it up, and that's who we give information to. So encourage them to complete that FERPA release. When you see them tonight, say, hey, this is a form that I want you to complete. So be sure to do that. And you can't call me and say, I want to talk about his grades. I don't have a FERPA release. Well, go get it. Okay? I can't go to the student and say, your mom wants you to sign this. Okay? They have to come to me and ask me for the form. So it's a conversation you need to have with them. Go see Dr. Martinez, get the form, sign it, and have him call me. More than happy to do that. Okay? Now, what if they don't want to do it? And you keep telling them, and you keep telling them, and you keep calling me, and I said, don't have it yet. You don't have it yet, don't have it. What can you do? Well, if your son or daughter are dependents of yours and shown on your tax statement, send me that front page of your tax statement showing me that they are a dependent on your taxes. And guess what? Full access. Okay? But I will need a copy of that front page of your 1040 to do that. Okay? So it's best to have the communications with your son and daughter and have them do this on their own, and because they can, it's just better that everybody's out in the open and transparent about everything. Okay? Any questions on FERPA? Now, as a school, we don't share information with people from the outside. You know, we're allowed directory information and stuff, but if somebody calls, like from, let's just say, down South Bank, and they said, Jason Smith is applying for a loan, we need his information. Well, how do I verify that? You know, what's his address, what's his name, what grade is he in? Technically, that's information that the law allows us to give out because it's just directory information, but we will not. If we got a call like that, it'd come to me, and I would call this person at the bank and said, what do you need and what do you need it for? And they'll say, oh, he's applying for a loan, this and that. I said, okay, I'll call you back. Then I'll call Jason into my office and say, hey, this person called me from the bank, said you're applying for a loan. You want me to release the information? So if someone calls asking for information, we won't just give it out. There has to be a good reason for it. The only ones who can come in and get it without any prior approval is law enforcement. Can't say no to them. Okay? So FERPA provides control over the release of educational records. What does that mean for you? Identifiable information is given to the student and not to the parents. Educational records includes, but are not limited to, GPA, academic transcripts, academic warning, academic probation, disciplinary action, what information you can get. And you know, even our faculty, when our faculty have to write a letter of recommendation, they have to get a FERPA release from the student, because if they say, oh, you know, they're a good student, you know, we're a little on the protective side of our students. So we want to make sure that we have any releases in the file for anything that goes out representing our students. So a student can sign the FERPA waiver, as I said before. They can also revoke that waiver. Okay, they sign the waiver, they can come back in and says, take my dad off of it. It's happened. Or, you know, put on there they can only talk about financial aid. They might change things. But what's your recourse to that? Send me your 1048. And students are not required to sign this release. You know, that's why conversation with them tonight over dinner, you know, you got a FERPA release form, you know, let's take it out, let's read it, and let's sign it. And it's, you know, it's really important. You know, some students feel like this is my chance to be independent and growing up, but you're still paying the bills. So talk to them, have a conversation, and get them to agree to sign this. Now, if there's no FERPA on file, and your son or daughter is sick or injured or something, FERPA's out the door. We're going to call you. We're going to let you know what's going on. We want you to know as soon as something happens, we are going to inform you of whatever is going on. You need to know. They will be getting an emergency contact sheet, so when they get that, make sure they complete the emergency contact sheet with the updated information. If you move or your phone numbers change, please give us a call and let us know so we can update that information as well. So, as I said, if your child is claimed as a dependent on your taxes, you can get all the information by sending me a copy of your 1040, front page of your 1040. I don't need to see anything else. Okay. Any questions on FERPA? Okay. That's my phone number, my email address. The extension is wrong on here. My extension is now 310. Many of you know my phone number already and know my extension. Please call me anytime. After the first 2 weeks of the semester, I am more free and have you know, more time. I know a lot of you leave messages and stuff, and eventually I get around. But for every one call that I'm on the phone with, 3 come in. That's how busy it is this time of year. So I want to talk a little bit about student services. And these are not the updated slides, so let's see what we have. So student life experience and the relativity experience, we have a student government program here and a Big Brother program and Big Sister program where we match students with our continuing students to sort of be like a mentor for them while they're transitioning from high school, living at home, to being a college student. And we have a relics class that meets during the week that is required for all freshmen. And they go through a variety of sessions and training, and now adding writing components to the relics experience. And this is a good way for them to learn about best practices and support and make sure they get the most experience out of Relativity School during their first year and beyond. So they'll have goal setting workshops, work in collaboration and team building. They'll learn about film set etiquettes. And then they will do a drug and alcohol awareness. We have a program called EverFi, and EverFi is your son and daughter should receive information on this. You know, we care about student wellness and success, so with the drug and alcohol awareness, this module that they need to go through, they should finish it by today. We will contact those students tomorrow if they have not finished the first part of their training to bring awareness, because we all know college students it's a time for them to try new things, and one of the things is drug and alcohol. So we want to educate them. We want them to learn about making the best decisions and be informed about what are the consequences for doing things like this. And this program gives them the information to help them, better educate them, help them make better decisions and lifelong decisions, just not, they're a freshman in school or in college, but lifelong decisions. Health and wellness, we want to make sure that they're healthy, they're eating correctly, you know, they're taking care of themselves, they're doing exercising, they're getting sleep. You know, some, you know, college students, it's, you know, it's an exciting time, and sometimes they forget to sleep enough. And, you know, the classroom is not a place to sleep. So, you know, we want to make sure that they take care of themselves and they understand that. Also, with the EverFi program, there is a financial literacy module that they will do that helps them learn about budget, cash flow, spending, limitations, what do you need, what do you want, the difference between the two. And this, again, this is skills that not only while they're in college, but lifelong skills that they can use well beyond their years in college. And they're going to learn about organization and time management. You know, we want them to discover when is their best time to read, when is their best time to study, when, you know, because it's different for everybody. So let's go through some exercises and figure that out. You know, we want them to be successful. Not every student learns the same, not every student studies the same. So some of them have figured it out in high school, but college is a little bit different, so there's going to have to be some adjustments. So let's give them information so they can do a little bit more self-discovery and find out what it's going to be like while they're in college. And then they're going to be set up with a faculty advisor, and they'll meet with their faculty advisor at least once or twice a semester to discuss grades, attendance issues, things like that. We want to always be in touch with the students and know what's going on with them so that we can provide better services for them and make sure that their outcome is successful, that they complete the first year the best way possible in their second year and they get to that 4-year graduation and you're saying, great, no more tuition. That's our goal, is to get them graduated, and we're going to supply them with as much support and services as we can to make sure they reach their goals. And I think I seen a hand back there.
If a student has a professional opportunity, and they want to request an excused absence, who do they speak to first about that? It has to be approved in advance, correct?
So students who have professional opportunities, and they're going to miss class, we have a procedure that they will need to follow, and they would take an excused absence form, fill it out, and give it to their program director and the academic dean for approval, and then they deliver that document to the student services office and the associate registrar. Now, we ask, because of professional opportunities, that you know about them in advance so you get the approval prior to the day you're going to miss class. And the students are going to have a long discussion on absences and excused absences and what's an excused absence and what's not an excused absence. But we realize, being here at a performing arts college, professional opportunities are going to happen, and we want to make sure that students take advantage of these opportunities when they will benefit from that in their career. There was another question? Okay. Our director of career services will talk to you more about the Insider Series and guest lectures, and she's in the back somewhere and she's waiting for her time. And so student services is in the hub. You all took the tour this morning, the hub where the malt shop is, the big open office area. That's where you'll find student services, which is the associate registrar, Kyra Salmon, and myself. We're located in there, right in the center of it. WellConnect is not a program that we're using anymore. We replaced that with the EverFi that I spoke about earlier. So in student services, we're always looking at developing programming, advise students, organizations, and student leaders to work and enhance the needs of the whole student, physical, emotional, and mental. And we always have an open door policy for our students to come in. One thing, again, these are not the slides that I turned in, but we also have a counseling service that's available for students. We have counselors that come in twice a week. Is that correct, Jen?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Twice a week, and the students can sign up for an appointment to meet with the counselors. They can meet with the counselors for a variety of reasons, not to complain about their academic schedule and stuff like that, but more things that may be personal. Maybe they're having difficulty transitioning from being at home to being on their own, or they're having some separation anxiety because they miss mom and dad, or they're not sleeping because they're stressed out with classes, or they're having boyfriend-girlfriend problems, or maybe some money problems. So more of the personal nature, they can sign up for a session with one of our counselors that are here twice a week. Information will be sent out to them on how to sign up for this. The only thing we ask when they sign up, that they make the appointment. If for some reason they cannot make the appointment, they have to cancel the night before. Is that correct, Jen?
I gave them till 8 a.m.
To 8 a.m. the day of their appointment. And if they don't, and that's considered a missed appointment. And if they miss 2 appointments in a semester, they cannot sign up for an appointment again that semester, because that time's valuable and other students might want their time. So just keep that in mind. If you're talking to them, and this is a great opportunity for you to have another conversation with them, if 2 months down the road and say, Mom, it's really tough. I don't know what to do. My boyfriend broke up with me, and he says, hey, why don't you make an appointment with the counseling services at your school? That's what it's there for. So know that it's there. We're giving you the information. that it's there so that you can pass this information on to them as well. We tell them all the time, but you know, sometimes it takes the push from the parent to actually get them to do that. And so please, you know, we'll help you and you'll help them, and you know, we'll get them, you know, the help that they need to make sure that this experience is the best experience that they're going to have. And we're going to skip through these. As I said, we're not using WildConnect, we're using Everify. And that is Lisa. So, Jen, I'm sorry, but these slides are not the ones I submitted. So,
I don't need no slides.
This is Jen Bourne, our Director of Career Services, and she's amazing, and she's going to take over for me. So, thank you for your time.
Hi, how are we all doing?
Good.
Awesome. This is going to be the best 5 minutes of your day. Are you ready? Okay. So I am the Director of Career Development here at Relativity School, and it's an amazing department, and I am glad to lead it, and I am so excited to work hand in hand with your students for their success. The sentence I delivered them today got a big response, so we're going to see what it does to you guys. Are you ready? Here we go. I said, it is my job to prepare and connect the next generation of talent to unparalleled industry opportunities. Yeah! So that's what I want to do with them. Like that's the umbrella goal, right? But like I'm going to talk to you just for a couple minutes about how that happens here. And so the first way that happens is we have workshops and master classes. And those are educational opportunities, networking opportunities, learning opportunities that happen outside of the academic classroom. So we may have a casting director come in and talk about casting. We may have an agent come in and talk about that. We may have a couple filmmakers come in and allow the students to mock pitch a feature film to them. So again, lots of opportunities for them to get in the muck of it and really real world learn the skills that they want to learn. Also, I do workshops, and think of those as career readiness workshops. So I'm gonna talk with them through the do's and don'ts of resume writing, of cover letters, of interviewing, of searching, and of networking. And that's the soft skill that we all need, right? The ability to create meaningful relationships that promote and prepare them for opportunities. So that's a lot of what I do with them when it comes to that. Let me see what else is on my post-it note. I also organize our Hollywood Insider series, which I think I call it the glitter of my job. And then I bring in directors and actors and writers and producers, and we kind of do it inside the actor studio type of interview style where they sit down, often in this room right here. We get the lighting all sexy and we make it all fun, and they connect with that person, and they, you know, that person's going to tell them their story. How did they get there? What were their obstacles? What did they have to overcome? What was their aha moment? What was their big break? Just advice, fun stories. It's a storytelling experience, and at the end they get to engage in a Q&A with whoever that might be. Just recently we had actor Barrett Foa from NCIS Los Angeles. We had a showrunner and executive producer Bradley Bredewig from The Fosters here. We've had Hollywood legends, the producers, directors, and writers of Airplane came in and did like a director's cut. So we had Flula Borg, who's like this YouTube personality, also on Pitch Perfect too. So we have like very today to very like, oh my gosh, legendary coming in to connect with our students. It falls under my umbrella because it's about making that connection and networking, but also being inspired for your career. So that's a lot. Those are really, really fun opportunities. I also help our students connect with those pre-professional opportunities that may come up. There may be extra positions out there. There may be a job as a production assistant on a set for like a weekend, and those kind of get funneled through me, and I'll shoot them out to the students and see if they're ready or prepared to apply for those opportunities, maybe on a weekend or during the summer. I also oversee our internships and help match them with internships if that's something that they want to do. So I think the biggest thing I want you to share with your students is that they should check their emails, and if it says Jennifer Bowen, like read it and respond, because it could be so exciting. Just this week I had like 3 emails that went out about paid acting opportunities, 1 production opportunity, and we're having a workshop. Like it's the guts, it's the excitement, it's the extra that really comes through here at Relativity. So I hope that you'll encourage them to remain in contact with me. It's not my job to get them a job, it's my job to work with them to make sure that they're super prepared when that opportunity comes. And so that's when I'll talk about my last initiative, which is the Freshman Resume Initiative. In their class RELX, which I think Steve touched on, they're going to actually, in the 3rd or 4th week of class, they're going to come up with, I'm going to teach the course myself, and then they'll come up with a draft and then a second draft of a resume for both business, like they'd use to apply for like an internship, as well as their industry resume, whether that be film or acting or musical theater. And so hopefully by the end of their first semester, they'll have a really workable draft, not so that it's perfect, so that if the perfect fun little opportunity comes up for them, or really serious opportunity comes up for them, they're not starting from scratch and freaking out and it's 2 days away. They're prepared and they're confident, and we're having one conversation and not 15 over the course of a weekend while they're freaking out for that really big opportunity, so that they're ready and they feel good about it. So that'll happen in their first year here, and I think that's a really exciting thing that's going on. I think that's about it. I hope that it wasn't too boring. I hope that you felt any of it stuff. But again, I really want to connect with them, so tell them, like, reach out to me. I want to talk with them. I want to help them. I want to know what their goals are, and the only way for me to help them is for them to tell me that story. So I can't wait to meet them all. And if you need anything, feel free to email or call me, jbowen@relativityschool.org, which is JBOEN@relativityschool.org. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, J-Bo.
No problem.
Woo! Best for last. Safety on campus. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm last or not. I've just said that. Long day for everybody, so I truly appreciate your attention. Just some quick bullet points that I have to go over. I know it says that I've got a whole slide presentation. Honestly, don't know what's up there. Don't want to find out what's up there. But I do have what I consider really important points. And to the second part of this very brief presentation, most important to me is that you have an opportunity to ask questions. And I think that you've probably been in that position almost all day. You're like, I'm out of questions. No more questions. I want to go home. I want to have dinner. I'm staying for pizza with the Lorenzo, whatever it is. We'll make sure that that happens. I don't know through the tour if you had uncovered the fact that this entire complex was built for Union Oil of California. It's the old Unical building that was erected in 1958 or completed and open. It was such a cutting-edge piece of architecture with elevator systems, escalator systems, pieces and components, and really a built-in safety guard that was probably unprecedented in a lot of the downtown area of Los Angeles. Even though LA is one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world, sometimes, and you might even recognize it in your own hometown, our downtowns have been forgotten. Los Angeles has had a huge resurgence, a huge gentrification of its downtown, and when the partners of LACS came together and opened the studio in 1999, this really was the jumping off point for downtown LA. They took over the land, or purchased the land. Took over the land, it sounds so pioneering. They came out with gold and pan for it, and then they took over the land. And they purchased the building and the surrounding areas that came to 20 acres. And on that 20 acres, they literally shut down major streets to Los Angeles to create the studio that you see now with its 6 sound stages. Those didn't exist. Union Oil, as powerful and as big as it was not producing films at that point. So most of the architecture that you see is really extremely new, considering most of the architecture in downtown LA probably dates back to the 1900s, early 1900s, early 1920s. This lot, in it being a production lot that you hear, I know, sentence after sentence after sentence, but maybe it'll sink in now. It's a 24-hour lot. The movie industry doesn't stop. It's not a 9 to 5, it's not an Elm Streeter, it's not swing shift, it's not graveyard. For those of you from Vegas, you're welcome. And that's my hometown, so I grew up with all kinds of people working 24 hours a day. So this lot is not an unfamiliar entity to me. With that 24 hours comes security that's here 24 hours a day. Doesn't mean that the lot is technically always open, but there's somebody that's always here. We've kept Relativity School open in terms of business hours. Last year was 8:30 to 6:30 as our business hours. We're extending that to a 7:30 a.m. start where our reception team will be available for the switchboard, will be open for incoming calls. If we're not available, we will provide you the number to LACS main line, because they are here 24 hours a day. I think that's an important part to think about, especially in downtown LA that is becoming more connected. We've talked at great length about connecting your student from most of them staying at the Lorenzo, not all of them, but LA is just becoming a much more connective metropolis, not just by car, but by train, by bus, any way you can get there, even by walking. I've lived 20 years in New York, so that's just second nature to me, even though I'm a Westerner. So I know that combining that culture is an oddity here in LA, super odd. I live on the west side, but I'm starting to take the train from the west side down to 7th and Metro, and then finding my way up here. I don't know that I'll always be doing it in wedges, but we'll see how it goes for the next few trips. On this lot, and it may not seem like it, I've always find this odd myself. That's why I share it with you, because I'm here every day, and I don't recognize that there's over 2,000 people in this little city. I know, right? And that's not on an active production day. HBO was here a couple summers ago, for an example, and they were shooting The Brink. And so one day they took that back street that we call Boylston, that was right out in front of Beaudry where you had lunch this afternoon. They had 500 extras, and they created Pakistan. Streets of Pakistan everywhere, 500 extra people, just as extras. That didn't include their principals or their crew or any of the caterers that may have been coming in and out. And the next day, they were all gone. I mean, they weren't gone. Nothing really terrible happened to them. They went home. But the next day, we had helicopters and Humvees, and it was an interesting day. I drove on the lot from a different entrance, and the first thing I encountered was a young man in camouflage and a gun. And I was like, movie set. So it was weird, but that's our daily life. And the good news is LACS takes great care in notifying us in advance, so that an oddity like that, I was able to flip back into, oh right, HBO is here, I received notification. We send those notifications out to our students as well, so that they're aware. And we talk often, and you've heard it in the last 24 hours, about being pre-professionals, and we don't take that lightly. Today, I think, is a great example. Daniel Radcliffe was here on set. Everybody know Daniel Radcliffe as a huge celebrity. It's in their forms and procedures that it's not only important for us to keep our students safe, but the other professionals that are on this lot. It's important that we always respect their time, their space, their professional setting. They're coming to work. They're not hanging out at Mickey D's. It's not like this is their Cheers, and you're welcome for those of you also. It's not their Cheers, it's not their neighborhood hang. This is their workspace, and therefore we insist that our students, this is their workspace. And I find that innately that creates a safety net. It may not feel like it at first, it may feel like a restriction, but I think we could all agree that sometimes safety nets are restricted. That's exactly what they are. They're a restriction. Twice a year, LACS has fire safety testing. And that means this entire tower gets emptied, both of the buildings. You're sitting right now technically in what they consider the tower building. So if you hear a little banging going on upstairs, it's because they're doing some construction on the floor above us, or the 12 floors, but definitely the floor right above us. As soon as you would turn in and use the ladies' or gentlemen's washroom that's around the corner, you're sitting in what we call the Maryland building. So when you've been in the turn court, you've seen those three buildings, the tower and then the two side buildings. And then that's all part of fire safety. Everybody exits, comes to the turn court, waits for a decision from the fire marshal if it's safe to go back in. We've had very successful drills, and I always believe a successful drill, just like in the biz, if you practice, it's not just about practicing, you have to practice well, so that when it comes to performance, which I hope in a fire drill, we never come to performance. No one wants that, but that we're ready. And so know that your students have been or will be through their Rel X class, through any paperwork or components that I keep in my office if they ever have a question about drills and safety. Is how we come to that turn court. We stay together as a group until we're dismissed, or if it had to go to the next level, it's one of the few times that we get to walk up the ramp. So we'll take that journey up the ramp and off of campus. What's also great about the location is we sit here in terms of saying right off campus, just 2.5 blocks away is Good Samaritan. one of the largest, most established hospitals in Los Angeles. Just outside of the true downtown core, but only 2 blocks from the lot. I also always recommend an urgent care that's close by over on Georgia by the Staples Center. So it's not a long distance for someone that has transport, or if we're able to put your student into a shared ride service, or Uber, I consider it shared ride service. And I really hope the last resort is putting them in an ambulance, always. But we have first responders that are not necessarily part of Relativity School, but that are a part of LACS. And I tell you all that hopefully to give you comfort, not to put you on alert, but to know that there are systems in place. What I do want to put out to you is to communicate with your student about insurance. Communicate with them about medical insurance, when to use it, when not to use it, and have a plan in place. I would say if there's ever something that trips up the experience of recognition of an illness, recognition of where to take that student, it's in between, like, do you have your insurance card? Like, no, I haven't actually talked to my folks about that, or my family, or however it's happening. So I encourage you to have that conversation, to really consider putting that component into place and reminding your student that it's in their wallet, please, and readily available, and that maybe they look at reprogramming their phone too, to where it's mom, dad, aunt, uncle, or the important numbers are really speed dials, so that if we're handed the phone, because it's happened. I mean, Good Samaritan and I are best friends. I've had great results, I will say, when students feel the need to travel to the emergency room. I've often gone with them personally. I think it's an important part. I think that's why you're investing in our school. You've noticed that the boutique nature that we have established is carried through to every level. No matter if we're increasing our freshman class each year, which we're tremendously proud of, the 91 students that we have coming into this freshman class, but we treat them no differently than the initial or the inaugural 30 that we had. And I encourage you to come on board with that at every level. I wanted to mention urgent care. I did. Boom, 24-hour lot, UniCal. Questions. What questions might I be able to answer and give you either confirmed assurance or open up opportunity to explore what component might not be in place? Oh yeah, it's time to go. Yes.
Are you the one that they should contact if they use routine care, like a chiropractor or something, to get a suggestion?
I would be happy to recommend, yes. So as director of operations and someone that has lived in the area and uses a chiropractor regularly, you know, I tell you, 20 years in New York and on Broadway 8 times a night, you know, your head hurts a little ever after, and so you gotta get it cracked back into place. But yes, we also, I would say, for our commercial dancers, we have a class that is about physical care. And that includes, probably, I think Michelle has in that curricula listed references for care, and I could absolutely take that to the front in reception. So they could also speak to reception. Anything else? You just want pizza. I don't blame you. Terrific. My name is Lisa Mandel. I'm Director of Operations. You can reach me through the main number, which has probably been drilled into your head, I hope, 310-622-4136. I'm at extension 103, always. Most of the students have my cell phone. I think I may stop doing that. Thought it was a good idea at first. Now I'm not sure. But I'm open and available for conversation pretty much any time in the day or night. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Is that it? Oh, is that it? Best for last! Oh, we're back.
Well, do I be back? So while Will sets up, I'm here to talk with you about college transition for parents. And this is a slide deck that I've got to thank Kyra Selman for putting together. I think many of you have met Kyra by now. Your students will come home in love with Kyra. She is the #1 helper for so many students here. So we'll just dive right in. So Okay, so when your students leave, the first thing that you will experience is the honeymoon period. I'm free! Right? And they will also experience this honeymoon period. I'm there, I'm free. And then there'll be cultural shock. In mythological terms, we might call it belly of the whale. This is when you're overwhelmed by the totally new experience. Both of you will probably experience this. Initial adjustment, initiatory adjustment. This will be when you start to find new ways of structuring yourself and your time and your life in response to the cultural shock of this. Mental isolation, this is as much about your students as it is about you. You know, it's really possible to isolate yourself or to feel isolated when you're in a new environment, in the belly of the whale that is Mordor or Los Angeles, whichever name you prefer. I think this brings me back to the importance and the reason behind why we made this freshman writing advisor course, is we really wanted to make sure that no students kind of slipped into introverted reclusion and seclusion. And this is, of course, you know, a lot of artists are introverts, and we certainly value introversion, but we want to make sure nobody feels alone. And then, of course, the final stage, I love looking at this as its own little hero's journey. So following this isolation, following what might be called a dark moment, comes some sort of integration, acceptance for your new reality. This is for you, this is for your students, to find out how they can now integrate themselves into the world as it is with the new experience. Common concerns that come up. So your students will feel increased academic pressure and even competition. I will say that this is mostly a culture that's very supportive and very positive, and we all want to see each other do well. We all want to see each other thrive, and the students very much treat each other this way. But there's no way around a certain amount of competitiveness, and a lot of the times that's with ourselves, of course. So when you enter an environment where the people are really, really good at the stuff where you've normally been the best, that can be intense, and you may have a few phone calls along those lines. And this is kind of the same point. How many of you feel like your students are overachievers? Out of curiosity, I'd love to know. I think more of you think that. Okay, so with the college experience will be a higher workload, a higher level of expectation. Not just the amount of work, but also the skill and the execution level. And I think this is also, you know, the years of sneaking in an essay draft right before it's due and still doing well enough are over. That's it. They're gone. Your students have to prepare now at this point if they want to succeed. They have to study. And, you know, part of you know, in the academic side, when I was in college, I poured all my extra time into my creative efforts, into my essays. I know I was one of those, but I was. But we don't expect that in a lot of ways from the students here. We expect that if they have free time, they're probably pouring it into their art. And they're probably actually stealing more time than they even have to pour into their art. And so it's a very different situation than a traditional liberal arts college where the primary, largest, biggest assignments you have are your essays. But that's not the case for your students. The primary, biggest assignments that they're going to feel are important to them are going to be their art, But all of our instructors, a majority of our instructors here, went through the same process themselves. And I encourage you to ask people like Kyra or Michelle or Krista what it was like when they went through the experience of an arts education. And what you'll find them all say, what they will all say to you is, it was really, really hard because they had to balance the academics, they had to do well, and the academics are not going to be, will not be, you guys saw the video. We're not lowering the standard of academics. We're actually just condensing it even more. This is really important, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier, and this goes back to that video that Mark was championing. It's not just about putting information in the head, it's far more about training the mind to be able to operate effectively in whatever the situations are that it comes to. So, you know, memorization may have, you know, gotten your student past an SAT vocabulary section, but memorization, while a strong sorry, I just triggered an internal tangent rant that I guess I'll go into, and that is that I really, really do believe, and this has been shown, that millennials, and I know your students are even younger than millennials, but the young students today, instead of remembering things, they remember where that information is. So there's a lot of outsourcing of thinking. There's a lot of outsourcing of knowledge. You know, oh, I know that I can get that information on Wikipedia, so I'm not even going to remember it. That is highly useful in lots of ways. It expands our limits as thinkers to be able to do that. At the same time, creativity with that information requires its internalization. You cannot be creative or thoughtful with information that's been outsourced or thoughts that have been outsourced. So while you, this is my own personal little riff on memorization. Now, yes, on one hand, you have to get past memorization and into analysis. Memorization is not what education is all about. However, to be creative with what you learn, it has to be brought in. None of those Kurzweil brain, you guys have seen, the Google leader trying to put these caps on our heads, the brain rinds, right, that are going to outsource a lot of our thinking for us and do all these things. We're going to be able to pop into this thought just because of this helmet, this magneto helmet we wear. I'm looking forward to mine. But I also understand that if I want to be creative with the material, it's got to come inside the skull. C is a passing grade, self-explanatory. So there may be lower grades than there were in high school. And most importantly, we don't, and this is just true to any college, you don't meet with the same regular schedule that you do in high school. This will require serious time management, and they won't have you to manage their time for them. This is when they have to step up their game and learn how to manage their time, and some of them will learn through errors. I did, and that'll be okay. We're there to support the hard lessons and the easy ones. But do expect this, predict this, that they will be struggling to learn how to manage their time. They're going to be in college, and we don't supervise them all the time. Alcohol is something that if you want to have your conversations, your communication with your student about what you believe and you think, it's a very important time to do that. It's also a time when this room's got real quiet. Yeah, it's also a time when a lot of people find themselves in a lot of ways. I'm sure that these types of things may happen, and you may want to be on top of that or in front of it with your student. And again, once they are here, once they're with us, they're in our care, but responsible for themselves. And this is a big challenge, of course. You have the tremendous challenge of being able to, of letting go and asking them to start to take some responsibility. I know that can be very challenging. I have my mother certainly struggled with that. But it's essential that you give that space. We love rain. Rain is wonderful in LA. It makes the ground bloom. But no flowers are going to open while it's still raining. Rain's got to stop. You guys have been raining and raining and raining on the seeds, but they got to have some space now to come up and blossom and be themselves. And this is the time when they will now confront, a lot of ideals that we have when we're young, a lot of moral and ethical beliefs that we have, get put to the test when you become an individual operating on your own and when you reach college. It's a good time for you to have those philosophical conversations. And this is also, of course, when they're going to continue to choose the paths of their life. And I actually would adjust this to make it plural. Dealing with homesickness, completely normal. And, home is where the heart is, so you'll have plenty of homesickness too. It's, of course, very important to listen and validate. So I want to say one thing about that. A little mythology lesson today. The oldest deity that we know about, that we've ever found any record of, is the eye goddess. You find little figurines of the eye goddess, and the eyes and the breasts are often mixed or indistinguishable, or they're eyes in place of breasts or breasts in place of eyes, but either way, it's this eye goddess all over the world. And this has been interpreted in the following way. People have come to believe, religious scholars and archaeologists have come to believe, based on contextual evidence, that the importance of the eye goddess reflects the importance of being seen. I love that movie. I think it was 8mm. Was that alien movie with Abrams, right? So in that, there's this wonderful scene where the little boy whose mother had died says, "My mother used to see me into existence." That's what the I Goddess does, and that's what you as parents do, and that's what all mentors do for developing individuals. Is we serve as I Goddess, I Gods, I Goddesses. We serve as that affirming source that people often see themselves as who other people see them as. And so this is a really, really, really important thing. We will share in the responsibility and honor of being I Gods and I Goddesses for your students. And I encourage you to think about that crucial role you play as validators, as people that will see them. Because as long as something isn't seen, that which needs to be seen will keep working until it is seen. And sometimes that'll be unhealthy, and sometimes that'll be corroded with other various problems. So there's nothing more healthy than just simply seeing. Staying positive. Sharing, recognizing that, there are bumps and challenges along the way. That doesn't make, when a bump and challenge comes up, it's normal. It's not something that you should always lose hope over. Encourage students to talk to other students or professionals on campus. When we do have a counselor on campus that's open every week, so I encourage the use of that. And they're also advisors. And again, this is back to, let the reins settle and give it time. Sometimes things just need space. Letting go versus assisting. Determine when to be a sounding board versus when to give advice and when to act. These are, of course, all of your own inner challenges to figure out when is when. Let your student take responsibility for managing appointments, completing their own paperwork, and contacting school officials. I had a mother that did a lot of things for me, and I have a girlfriend that wishes she didn't. And I suspect that some of you will also have students that go through that. Oh, you were hoping I had something positive spin on that at the end? Okay, so there will be a new normal. And one of the realities that we all face when we confront the world, when we leave the nest, when we leave Eden, when we leave the small enclosure that we've made for ourselves where things are stable and predictable and reliable, the second we leave that small world, the world is unpredictable. Control isn't a reality. And this is also, as a student, as an individual leaves a space that feels very comfortable, predictable, and controllable, and enters a world that is very chaotic, big, and not very controllable, this can be very stressful. It can lead to major adjustments, and this can happen at any stage of life. It'll be maybe normal for you to disagree with the choices of your students. And it will be tough because you won't be able to help them every time that they're ill, hurt, unhappy, or haven't called by Sunday at 3 p.m. I did have one Sunday when the police came looking for me because my mom couldn't get me on the phone. But it is also important, going back to your role as I Gods, I Goddesses, to see them as who you want them to be. There's a little bit of a causality here, right? People will become who they're seen as, and people will be who they want to be seen as. It goes both ways. So if you want to see your student, if you want your student to become something, I saw a great Aikido instructor who was talking about this is counter force, or counter resistance. This is angular resistance, right? So you're hitting the side, and then this is co-flow. That's what it was. Opposite flow, angular flow, and then co-flow, right? And so the point is when you have opposing flow to something, when you resist something, when you say, I don't agree with what's going on, what happens? Armor happens, right? And so the more you disagree, the more you push people into where they are. These are probably insights that you've recognized over your years. But it's very much going to be the case. The more you fight your student, as opposed to encouragingly see them and point them in the direction you want them to be, the more you may find that you're holding them in that state. And of course, the icing on this complicated cake is that you get to regain a lot of your own non-parental identity, One of my favorite myths of all time, and this is a great one to share with you mothers out there, is the myth of Persephone. And this is when Persephone goes to become a wife, and Demeter, the mother, has to figure out what the hell to do next. And at first she cries, and she wails, and she wails, and she wails. And then, it's myth, so it's very obscene. You're talking about really obscene stuff that happened at some point. I encourage you to check it out. Babies smiling up from the places they would be born, lots of weird stuff. But the point is that Demeter comes around and she comes to realize that there is life after motherhood. There's a whole nother phase of life. And for those of you who are about to go through that or are going through that, there's nothing I could encourage more than the Hymn to Demeter or A Long Journey Home, which is about the myth of Persephone, written by the first woman president of the American Academy of Religions. A Long Journey Home is very good. Conflict resolution, of course, you want to encourage your student to use the campus resources as much as possible, to take responsibility for themselves, and step in, of course, when you need to, but what you, of course, don't want to reinforce is this idea that there's always somebody there that in the end will take care of your problems for you. Same statement. Listen and be supportive. Can I have more money? I'm out of money. I'm out of money. Hey, can I have more money? That may be coming your way. Yeah, of course, it's we highly recommend you have these conversations in advance. Create a budget instead of an open account. Budget expectations. What happens when they run out? Are they authorized for credit card purchases? Who is responsible for which bills? These types of things. I will say, as somebody who went to a college where it was totally in a bubble and we all lived on the dorms for all 4 years, there's a lot of benefits to that, but you have the opportunity of helping your students to transition not just into professional life but into adulthood by giving them and allowing them the responsibilities of paying their rent, paying their bills, and doing these kinds of things. Track credit card spending and ATM withdrawals. When I was a student, I would have felt like Big Mother wouldn't have been very welcome to me, but you may need to do that. How to balance a checkbook if a checkbook is used. Of course, highly recommend limited credit card use as they're trying to become responsible for themselves. The more debit limitations, the better. Importance of comparison shopping. What happens if your child gets sick as an out-of-state parent? All of your students have insurance. I know this because it was a requirement for them to come here. You want to double check that you have multi-state coverage. Urgent care and emergency room facilities are located within the proximity. Covered California, this may be a little, I think it's still going now, offers special enrollment outside of open enrollment period. So setting academic goals and outlining expectations. Of course, it's really recommended that you find that predictable time to talk with your students, whether it's every 2 weeks, every week, whatever. Regularity goes a long way for that kind of thing. And so here's some books that Kyra's found for you. You're on Your Own, Letting Go, and I'll add again, A Long Journey Home. Don't tell me what to do, just send money. Okay, and that's all we have here. Do you have any questions that from my years of experience having my students go to college, I can answer for you? That's what I figured. Okay. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing y'all Family Weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? Good. You're freezing? Yeah, that happens. Yeah. So basically, I'm here, and I may be joined by some colleagues to answer questions. You've had a day or so of a lot of information, and a big part of what we really feel we want to do is create a transformational experience. It isn't enough just to say, here's the book, just go learn it. You know, we have to make sure that we're helping your sons and daughters really make these connections between all of these different diverse areas of knowledge so they can act upon it, you know? So I want to check in with you guys because, you know, we all have to work together as a team to really support this experience for them, to make sure that they have the resources, to make sure that if there's any signs that come up, you know, you may be noticing things that we're not noticing, or we may see dots to be connected that, you know, if we have information becomes part of the whole picture. So I just want to make sure that we create an environment of trust, mutual understanding. It's going to be a unique experience for them. There's going to be unique challenges for them. And I just want to make sure that we set up those lines of communication. So if there's questions that you got now, please feel free. If they come later, which is usually when I get my good ideas, you know, after the meeting is over, I want to make sure that the door is open and that you're kind of aware who to reach out to. If there's something having to do with their academics, that would be me or their chair. There will also be situations where it may have to do with student services and all the different, you know, questions which Steve talked about in his presentation, Dr. Martinez. So we just want to set up that conversation now so that the next 4 years are fulfilling and satisfying for you guys as well as we undertake this journey together. Any questions I can answer? Yes.
So part of growing into adulthood is, you know, balancing working and being in school. Mm-hmm. And so are there things that they have to do now to be able to work in the industry, union membership, things like that, that they have to be prepared for now or get set up for now?
Well, these are things that will be addressed in different classes. The chairs for the different programs will address these kind of questions as they come up. They don't always come up for every student at the same time. Mm-hmm. They will be comprehensively addressed in a class called Professional Practice, which mm-hmm. is a 2-semester class during their senior year. Mm-hmm. And it's really meant to be a holistic preparation. Mm-hmm. You know, talk to them about, you know, these are the guilds that you need to be aware of. Many of them will have had a class in entertainment and business law before then, which will address some of these questions. They'll look at, well, what does your creative portfolio need to look like? Mm-hmm. What is your brand? You know, how are you creating yourself? What's the story that you're trying to tell? Do you have the materials necessary to put that forward? Who would be the good, you know, agents and casting directors to be in connection with? Or the corollary for that within film or dance. So that class is where we do a deeper dive into all of those different questions. A lot of those questions will come up. It seems like so many questions come up around excused absences. That's where I kind of have a lot of my, you know, contact with the students because I have to sign off on those. And so the questions of what is an opportunity and what is the guild and is this a good opportunity and how should this be governed will come into play in that question. Mm-hmm. So, you know, in that situation, if they get called in by an agent for an audition and, you know, usually what happens in that process is the chair for that given area will review the information, will have the subject matter expertise within that particular area to know, is this a real professional opportunity? Mm-hmm. And they'll make a recommendation, and then that'll come to me, and I'll look at that information. I'll look at their overall academic standing in terms of how they're doing, if, you know, this is something that they can accommodate in that work-life balance, and then I'll make a determination about it. And usually we work it out, and sometimes we don't agree. And so, but those processes are really educational because that's another thing about learning is that if you could just read a book and understand what to do, then it'd be very easy to be an educator. But part of what we try to do is we try to structure these kinds of learning experiences because that's the stuff that they remember. They'll remember, I got to do this and this is why, or I didn't get to do this and this was why. You know, they have to be taken through that journey. How's that for a non-answer?
Well, that helps, but I mean, even in terms of just like, you know, part-time work comes up or like an extra opportunity, do they have to be in the union to be an extra?
No,
Okay.
they don't need to be. And again, you know, their chairs are really resources for that. You know, these things come up. The conversations are wide-ranging, and we'll make ourselves available for what comes up and share that information.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question about extended professional opportunities. My son recently booked a role in a pilot, and they're in pre-production, but they're going to be shooting a number of episodes. If someone is has an ongoing role, like on a TV show, for example, can arrangements be made, or would they have to withdraw and then re-enroll?
It's something that we have to handle on a case-by-case basis. And different courses are even different, because, you know, there may be a class where, you know, much of the information is online and they can write the material and they can cover a lot of that work. You know, for that class, we may be able to work out an arrangement for that. Other classes are really hands-on. They're in the classroom. And another part of this puzzle for us is that, you know, what your son or daughter is doing or not doing in that class affects not just them, but affects their partners. And so we have to kind of do a triage on those situations as they come up and make sure.
Are you involved in that process?
Yes, yes. A student doesn't get an excused absence, even on just on a one-time basis, without me saying yes, I agree, based upon their academic standing, based upon the opportunity, all of those different factors. So, you know, these situations have come up in the past. If you have not seen it already, Jen Bowen, who is our career development person, you're going to see a video of students talking about all of the opportunities that they have had while they've been here. We can't promise that all of your sons and daughters will have those opportunities, but these things happen. No, there's nothing that you're asking me about that hasn't come up before, because of the caliber of the students that we attract. So, you know, there have been situations when they were able to take care of a couple of those classes, but other classes depended too much upon classroom participation, and they had to withdraw from that class and then pick it up the next semester or the next time that class was offered. So, yeah, it's kind of case by case. Sure.
Question.
Yeah.
So in regards to auditions, you were saying that they needed to be approved, but sometimes when you get an audition, you get it the night of
Sure.
the day before you audition. So how would that work?
Sure. So the policy states that it has to be an extraordinary opportunity, either for their development as an artist or for their career. It has to be something that's just like a real game changer for them on some level, and that they have to let us know either in advance or as soon as possible. And again, if I was at a standard institution where, you know, basically a dean's job is just to rap knuckles and enforce rules, I wouldn't be very good at that, because I work with people. That's the part of it that I enjoy, and people have real situations and real problems they need to solve. So again, they'll be handled on a case-by-case basis, and things may change. I mean, I've had students who, you know, booked a great gig to like shoot this corporate event, and it was something that could really, you know, be a game changer for this kid. And the first time that he got it, I said, yeah, I can sign off on that. And then he got 4 more, and then I didn't approve those. And he said, well, how can you do that? You approved it before. I said, well, yeah, but now you've got 4 of these opportunities. This isn't a game changer for you anymore. This isn't changing your prospects to be able to go off and just do another corporate gig. Feel me? You know, I try to make it make sense. If it's not making sense to you or making sense to your son or daughter, then we have a conversation. You know, that's really.
And are you willing to speak to potentially frustrated agents? If, for example, they want my son to go out on an audition and you don't feel like it's a game-changing opportunity, for example, are you going to be an intermediary? Should they listen to you or listen to their agent, or
mean, we're there for support. I mean, I think that, again, I try to engage all these as learning opportunities. On the whole, I think that your son or daughter gets more from that experience if they learn how to mediate that experience. I've not had that situation come up where I've been called in to broker that or defend that. I'm actually now surprised that I haven't, come to think of it. You know, again, with all of these situations, and I hope you can have some sense of it now in terms of our holistic perspective and how we focus on the teaching, they're all learning moments. You know, some of the most important stuff will happen outside the classroom in terms of how do I handle, how do I balance.
The key is just to have the student communicate with you, and then you'll deal with things as they come up.
Yes, proactively, early, often. I think if there is, if there's a place where things fall down, it's in communication, you know, where they didn't ask about it in advance, and they know that they could have, and then they feel badly, and then they don't talk about it, and then this thing happens, and you know, they feel embarrassed about it, or you know, they didn't want to say that they, you know, had a learning difference, and so they don't have that conversation, and they don't feel like they can have that conversation, and you know, that's where we get into trouble, where they don't feel like they can have those conversations. So I try to be really proactive with you all and with the students to let them know that this is going to be challenging. Things are going to come up. You know, I think part of what I really want to disabuse these, you know, our young people of is the idea that life isn't supposed to be hard. Life is supposed to be hard. That's what it's there to do. Life is here to teach us the things that we need to learn to move forward in it. So let's, you know, get ugly early. Let's figure it out. It's going to get messy. That's life. You know what I mean? And to help them understand what is a big deal and what isn't a big deal, you know, and how they can serve, you know, save those really big, juicy problems for things that are actually big, juicy problems. So, you know, we're just here to help them succeed in any way that we can, you know. So I really want to empower you as collaborators in that process, and I really try to empower our students as collaborators. You know, when I teach a class, I'm very fond of this little trick that I play with them where I say, okay, so whose class are you in? And it's like, well, I'm in your class. And I say, like, okay, you've all failed. Like, well, what do you mean? It's like, it's not my class. It's your class. It's your learning. You know? I work for you. You don't, it's like, if you're here to come up with a grade to please me, like, I can't please me. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, my lovely wife, she's never gonna, you know, it's like, I'm a challenging person to be happy around, you know, God help her. You know what I mean? You know, please yourselves, kids. Figure out what your goal is. And it kind of takes that energy of like, oh, I'm doing this for the grade. Just, no, don't do it for the grade. Why would you do that? Do it because it really makes sense for you to figure out how to do this for yourself. You know, that should be the burden that I face as an educator, that what I'm teaching actually has value for you. You know, because we have to teach them how to lead themselves. You know? If they're teaching them how to follow the rules, we're doing them a disservice because life doesn't play by rules. You know what I mean? Other questions? This is fun. Yeah.
I have a parent weekend question.
Sure.
Generally, I understand in the past it's been in the spring and now it's transitioning to the fall.
Right.
And just wondering kind of what the idea is for that.
Sure.
We live in Virginia, trying to figure out if like we should come back for that. And
Sure. Part of why we made the switch was we wanted to really have the parents' weekend, you know, and kind of lots of conversations with myself and my colleagues, And we really felt like the most important thing for Parents Weekend is to give parents an opportunity to check in with their sons and daughters to see how things are going, and to also feel like they're part of the experience that they're having. And what was happening for us was when we waited until the spring, they didn't get that check-in when they really wanted to get a sense of it. And the other thing that's going to happen for us now that we have a senior class is that there's going to be lots of showcases, graduation. There's just going to be lots and lots of big events. And so we didn't want to have the family weekend get lost in that. And in the past, they've been more performance opportunities, and those are important, but there's going to be a lot of them. And what we wanted to make sure that we had was an opportunity for you to understand what the process was. So what the family weekend will be about is opportunities for you to come inside the classroom with us. It'll be very process-oriented. It'll be talking to faculty. It won't be particularly razzle-dazzly. Like we do that really, really well. You're going to have lots of just knockout weekends, or this performance, or this showcase, or these sets of screenings. We found out that we could do that really, really well because we've got really talented students. But what we were having less opportunities for was more organic, more sit-down time to really help you guys understand what the experience was. Because, again, in terms of how I focus my remarks with you, what's become clear over the last 3 years is that this is a really novel and fascinating experience that they're undertaking with us. And sometimes, especially when you're tired and you are doing more than you thought you could possibly do, and different is not better, you know what I mean? And the parents don't know. They don't really have a sense of what's going on. And so, you know what I mean? It's like I want to have you guys be part of this experience with us so you can really understand what the challenges are. Because this is a big investment that you guys are making in the most precious thing that you have. I want to make sure that what we're doing makes sense. So that's what it's about. And more specific plans will come out on that as we get closer. Yeah.
I probably should have asked Dr. Martinez this. I know you guys don't take the Yellow Ribbon program. Do you plan to in the near future from the VA?
For the VA, that's something which I'll be honest with you, I don't know the details on it. Okay. And I would ask Steve, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, it's not so much a general question, sorry, but my
no worries.
daughter is one of 4 of your international students on this intake.
Sure.
And she comes in early, I think, to speak to Dr. Martinez tomorrow. I just wondered, was that more of an administrative thing because she's been told to bring in her passport, or what's the...
Yeah, it's just, to my understanding, that's just an administrative detail. It's not something that is happening just because we have an issue with your, no, it isn't, she's not in trouble, Yeah, no, I want people to feel comfortable to go to my office, and I know it's just kind of the feng shui of the room. It's like it's there, it's in that corner, like students do not want to go there. Parents feel like, oh, this must be bad if I'm going in there. No, I encourage you all, and I've done this with every class. I want to know what's going wrong. I want to know what's not working for you, because that just helps me make the place better. And I can't say to your sons and daughters that they need to be flexible and nimble and innovative and collaborative and adaptive and adoptive if I'm not willing to do it myself. And so our senior class have become very, very comfortable with knocking on my door and telling me everything that's wrong with the school. And I say, thank you very much. And, I've learned how to add salt to that equation. And but usually I get my best feedback from them, about how to make it better. And then what they get from that is not only did the class get better, but they got the experience of being taken seriously. And a few times, we'll be throwing, fettuccine at the wall to see what sticks. But eventually they kind of realize, oh gosh, Mark's going to listen to me on this. So are we really coming in with a solution? So it's a process for us to be better and for them to take responsibility for their process. You know, I really want to get them out of thinking of themselves as clients, you know, as people who are being serviced. I mean, yes, they are, and we work for them, but the way we work best for them is to work with them and to have them take responsibility for their dreams, their process, learn how to greenlight themselves, you know, and get after me for not giving them the information that they need when they needed it, as opposed to feeling like, you know, they have to, you know, somehow comply with some pre-existing notion of what good looks like. I mean, how is that exciting to anybody, you know? Yeah. Any real tough ones?
I think, unless anybody has any pressing questions, I think we need to just shift you guys into the Lorenzo Talkin' Pizza Party afterwards.
That sounds good.
You guys probably need a break, but please, if there's any last questions, I don't want to cut anybody off.
You know where my office is, hopefully from the tour. It's in the hub, in the corner. Steve's office is here. Call us early, call us often. Let us know what we can do to help make the school better. Thank you.
All right, guys, so just follow the blue shirts back to the Beaudry Theater where we were earlier. Lorenzo Talkin'